You made the mistake of being born in the early 2000s and going into STEM, and now you're paying the price for it. And this is a common thing that a lot of people, I think, in my generation feel. And there's a lot that like kind of goes into it. And personally, the sort of doom and gloom that a lot of young people feel is related to sort of three and a half issues. So these are sort of the mass ongoing layoffs, the rise of AI, and also I think sort of something that's very underreported is kind of just the general cultural decline that's been going on. So let's get into these layoffs. So, I mean, you can search this stuff up online, but like over the last 4 years, we've been seeing like over 200,000 people laid off like per year. Like even just this year, we're already at like 30,000, right? It's like 10,000 a month. Like the job market is getting completely flooded with top talent from all these big companies that are getting sort of laid off, and now they're re-entering the job pool. Now, the sort of half reason here is that if you also add in the sort of fact that a lot of people went into these very high-paying careers. So this is like computer science, math, physics, business, these sorts of areas, engineering. Like all these areas got a massive amount of people entering universities, and especially in COVID, we had a lot of grade inflation. So a lot of universities took on a lot of students, and these students are just now graduating. So we're getting a ton of students who are entering the workforce, and then we're also getting a ton of ex-employees who are entering the workforce. So this causes like a massive talent pool. Also because of layoffs, a lot of these companies are decreasing, they're restructuring, they're sort of downsizing, which means that they don't have jobs. They're not actively hiring. You're not actively hiring if you're laying people off, right? Because you don't have the space for them to work in. As a young person right now, like what do you feel? You have this constant feeling that's like, well, I'm sitting here learning these skills so that I can be employable, but then now none of these skills seem to matter because there's no jobs to employ me. This is a tough feeling. This is like a really, really tough feeling. University is a big commitment. You go 4 years, commit 4 years to go to university, and then you come out and can't even get a job with that, and it costs you money to go to university. I think this is the biggest thing, at least in the West. We pay a lot of money to go to university. We have to recover this cost, and this kind of business model is built on this idea that people will recover that. It feels like that's not possible. It feels like you're not going to be able to make it out. This sort of new grad hiring pipeline where all these companies are asking for massive amounts of experience because they can't afford to train juniors right now, because all the people that would be training juniors are being laid off. They want to hire people who can handle the critical infrastructure while they restructure, and those people are going to need it, mostly going to have experience. I think I'll talk about this when I talk about networking nights, but like networking nights are kind of a scam now because you go to these and no one's hiring. A lot of this, it really starts in COVID because, again, all these companies, like they started hiring, like universities started getting a bunch of new students, and all these companies started hiring. They were hiring so many people during COVID because everything moved online and they could somehow afford. All these tech companies, especially, like they got a lot of extra money and funding because they were having huge valuations because everyone was using their products. And so a lot of people went to university to go get these big high-paying jobs. But then as things started going back in person, these companies realized, we hire too many people. And so they're restructuring, they're firing people. But you can't take away the experience from the employees. So like those employees now enter the job market with a lot more experience. And they kind of make it harder for all these newer grads to kind of compete. The other aspect, of course, the elephant in the room in this situation is AI. And I remember just like 3 years ago when I was playing around 2022 with these silly ChatGPT was like 3 or 2. It's kind of like, it was not a great model. It's like basically just autocomplete. And then ChatGPT 2.5 comes out at the end of 2022 and it's like, oh, wait, this could actually be kind of good. And then the model just kind of, they kept getting better. More companies started showing up, and then suddenly you get people who are trying to, these companies, again, the layoffs, they don't have anything to do with AI, but they were already laying people off due to this over hiring in the early 20s. And then they're trying to recover the fact that they're firing people in sort of certain areas of infrastructure. They're like, okay, well, we'll just get AI to do this. And AI has gone to the point where it can probably do a few jobs that a junior engineer could. And this causes some problems for new hires because they'll just, it's a lot cheaper. If you add up the cost, like $1,000 a month is only $12,000 a year. That's significantly cheaper than like the starting wage for a junior engineer. To even $2,000, $3,000 a month is still significantly cheaper than a junior engineer. Maybe not an internship, but that's because internships are subsidized. That's a whole different issue. But hiring new grads is like a lot more expensive and a lot more time consuming than just getting an AI coding agent subscription model. Of course, training your own is significantly more expensive, but for these big companies, that cost doesn't even matter to them anyways. When you're a young person, you get this feeling that's like, oh, all these companies, not only are you not going to get hired, but even if you get hired, you feel like you're going to get laid off. And then you also feel like your job is going to get replaced in a year. Now, I don't believe that AI is as good as people say. I think that AI is being hyped up largely to create a scapegoat for these layoffs, which has nothing to do with AI. They were already happening around the time AI was going on, but it does sort of create this narrative that, you know, young people can't escape. That's like, oh, you know, you're replaceable. You know, you have these skills, but they don't matter. I'll just get technology to replace you. And that leaves a question like, what do you do? What do you do? How do you kind of like deal with this? And this leads me to my final point, which is about this kind of cultural decline. A lot of this is it is reported on, but it's kind of subtle, because COVID kind of killed a lot of things that made life interesting, killed a lot of cultural things. A lot of stuff moved online, and this put a lot of strain on certain restaurants. Now restaurants, at least in my city, they close a lot earlier than they used to. You know, it's very rare where things are open past 10 p.m. now. Cost of groceries has gone up, so younger people don't have the kind of extra money to spend going out. Also, clubbing, alcohol consumption is lower, so people don't really go out and party as much. Instead, everything that we want, you know, this sort of social stimulation, we can get just from our phone. Problem is that being online is not the same as having like genuine social connections with real people. So you run into this issue where you're trying to connect with people that, you know, you can't find anyone to connect with. There's no events to go to, you know, there's no one to talk to, because everyone only talks online. But that's isolating, that's lonely, that's not a real connection. We're starting to feel these effects, especially as, for example, music has started to turn into a race of who can get on TikTok the fastest. You can go viral on TikTok the fastest, and so you get songs that sound good for 30 seconds but are kind of trash everywhere else. You get a lot of, now we're seeing like AI generated songs and this sort of thing. A lot of stuff just feels derivative and soulless. I'm a sports fan. I've watched this, like, I can't watch sports games anymore because you have to pay for like 20 different like subscription services just to watch all the games. Like, stuff's insane. You know, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you guys get the point. You know, like, it's hard to even find ways to enjoy the small things in life now, because a lot of that has been taken away from us because of this digitalization of our culture. And I think that leaves young people in a position where you're like, oh, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I can't get a job. And also, even if I get a job, I feel like I'll be unemployable in a year anyways. I'll just get like fired and replaced with a machine. And then you can't even enjoy the small things in life because there's no third spaces. You know, people don't go to movies. They just watch streams. You know, people don't go to a library. You just go on your computer. They'll ask ChatGPT now. How are you supposed to feel? It's tough. Now, I don't mean to be all doom and gloom. I think that there is still kind of a light at the end of this tunnel. I'll talk about it a lot bit more later, but I don't think AI is really ever going to be capable of replacing a lot of the tasks that people say it does. A lot of the layoffs will create opportunities later, because the people who are laid off, if they can't find jobs, they'll create startups. Eventually those startups will get funded. You know, we're going to see more companies. AI allows more people to build companies at a much faster rate. And then eventually those companies, once they scale and AI can't help them anymore, they're going to need employees. But the thing is, this will probably not fix itself for another three years. And until then, you know, you got to find ways to develop your skills as an individual, so that when things come back, you know, you're ready and you're not left in the dust because you basically did nothing for the last 3 years. And also, like, I think just finding ways to be social, finding ways to interact with people and kind of bring back that kind of culture. You know, go out with your friends and this sort of thing. Try to go out at night. Try to create that demand so that businesses open up late again. Like, that's the one thing I think you can try to do, and sort of try to create that change, but with your wallet. I mean, of course, it's all very difficult, like groceries and all this, rent, housing costs, a lot of other things I didn't talk about, but I think a lot of it goes into this cultural decline, just the economic stagnation. I don't know, let me know what you think. I think that things suck right now, but I'm very optimistic. I think that we will eventually see the light at the end of the tunnel. Who knows? It could also get much worse. You guys just gotta live your life. You gotta just go for it and try your best. I think that's the right philosophy.